violence.
A few weeks ago, when the vice chair of the January 6th Select Committee, Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney, name-checked Ivanka Trump on national television, you had to have an inkling that it wouldn't be long before the first daughter of the disgraced ex-president would receive a rocket from the committee like she got today. 11 pages long, filled with some really awkward new details and a request to discuss any other conversations you may have witnessed or participated in regarding the president's plan to obstruct or impede the counting of electoral votes. For example, the committee has information suggesting that President Trump's White House counsel may have concluded the actions President Trump directed Vice President Pence to take would violate the Constitution or would be otherwise illegal. I mean, that's a lot just right there. The conversation that took place, apparently, that she witnessed. The committee wants to know about that conversation between Trump and Pence that Ivanka witnessed herself on the morning of the insurrection. We didn't know about that. They also say they have information suggesting that Trump's own White House counsel thought what Trump was telling Pence to do was illegal. Next, the committee asked Donald Trump about Donald Trump's actions during the insurrection itself, those on Pence. Even at the time, it was appalling and shocking in real time. He wrote, quote, "Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done." The committee says they are, quote, particularly interested in discussions inside the White House and with the president before and after his 2:24 p.m. tweet. Testimony obtained by the Select Committee indicates that members of the White House staff requested your assistance on multiple occasions to intervene in an attempt to persuade President Trump to address the ongoing lawlessness and violence on Capitol Hill. And according to the committee, a lot of people thought Ivanka Trump might be the only one who Trump would listen to. Quoting again, "The president was, according to one account, stubborn, and staff recognized you may be the only person who could persuade him to act." And Ivanka Trump was not the only person trying to convince Trump to do something he didn't want to do. In today's letter, we also got new insight into the efforts of the 9 p.m. host on Fox News to try and change Trump's tone in the days after the insurrection. Now, we already knew Sean Hannity had been kind of part of the Trump inner circle. I mean, almost like a staffer to the president. He'd been texting with Trump's chief of staff. Today, we learned he was also in communication with Trump's chief spokesperson, Kayleigh McEnany. Quote, "On January 7th, Mr. Hannity texted Ms. McEnany laying out a 5-point approach for conversation with President Trump. Items 1 and 2 of that plan reads as follows. No more stolen election talk. Yes, impeachment and 25th Amendment are real and many people will quit. In response, Ms. McEnany replied, "Love that. Thank you. That is the playbook I will help reinforce." I mean, wow. That's Fox News host Sean Hannity, game planning a post-insurrection approach, which current Fox News commentator Kayleigh McEnany happily accepts. There's a lot to talk about in this letter. I'm very pleased to be joined by Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland. He's a member of the January 6th Select Committee, author of the excellent new book, Unthinkable, Trauma, Truth, and the Trials of American Democracy, which I spoke to him about on the podcast, Why Is This Happening?, which you can get wherever you get your podcasts. Congressman Raskin, there is a lot here. I guess the first question is, this is a solicitation of cooperation. How do you understand, how should we understand this letter to Ivanka Trump?
Well, we're closing in on the target, Chris. I mean, it's been a very good week for us with the Supreme Court decision rejecting Trump's efforts to block release of a whole bunch of documents. Lots of people coming forward to testify, and we're really developing a fine-grained portrait of what happened on that day. Ivanka Trump is a critical figure because she was there in the morning. We believe she was there when Trump was still trying to twist Mike Pence's arm. Remember the "you will go down in history as a patriot or a pussy" overture towards him. And she was also a key figure in trying to get to pull Trump back, apparently. So she could really, perhaps complete the portrait of what happened on January 6th for us.
Yeah, and I didn't know about this conversation she saw with Pence. There's another item in that letter I want to ask you about because it talks about testimony from General Keith Kellogg. So I'm going to read again. This is nothing that's not public because this is in a letter, and ask for you to sort of maybe give us some context here. It says in the letter, in his sworn testimony, General Keith Kellogg explained the White House staff wanted the president to take some immediate actions to quell the unrest. Did you think that she, Ivanka Trump, could help get him, President Trump, to a place where he would make a statement to try to stop this? Yes. Question, he didn't say yes to Mark Meadows or Kayleigh McEnany or Keith Kellogg, but he might say yes to his daughter. answer. Exactly right. So tell us about what you've learned about this effort, this apparently desperate effort to get him to stop this.
Well, the impression we have is of successive entreaties directly to former President Trump to essentially call off the dogs and to tell everybody to go home. Obviously, it was a matter of walking 20 paces over to the cameras and just making a speech. And there were repeated efforts to get him to intercede. And I think, Ivanka Trump figures highly now in this because people thought that he might listen to her. But what we're getting is a very clear sense that the people in the immediate entourage of Donald Trump knew what a terrible thing this violence was, that it was illegal, it was unlawful, it was unconstitutional. We believe that the White House counsel was rendering advice to that effect, and yet Trump continued to, try to march everybody off of the plank.
And it also seems, and again, this is from the letter here, there's these video outtakes, and there's been some reporting about multiple outtakes necessary to get Trump to say leave, even though he says, I love you, and you'll never forget this day. It's a very bizarre performance. The president failed in the initial clips to ask rioters to leave the Capitol. I mean, more and more and more and more detail that he was utterly resistant to doing the one thing it seems that everyone agreed was necessary to stop the violence.
Well, he had been